The auctioneer's voice cracked across the dry Arizona air like a whip. "Whoever buys this ranch gets a servant free." The crowd laughed, dust swirling around their boots as the hammer hovered in the auctioneer's hand. The year was 1883, and the sun was merciless over the broken fences and empty paddocks of the old McAllister ranch. Only one man didn't laugh. He sat high on a black stallion, his eyes narrowed under the rim of his hat. He wasn't from around here. His coat was dark, travel-worn, and his expression colder than gunmetal. The woman they called the servant stood beside the porch, her wrists folded before her, her face half hidden behind tangled brown hair. There was something in her stillness, a quiet defiance that made even the wind pause. Her name was Clara, and every man in town knew her story, at least the version told in saloons and gossip corners. They said she'd been found wandering half-dead years ago, half-mad, speaking Apache words no one understood. Old McAllister had taken her in, put her to work scrubbing floors and mending fence posts, and she'd never left. Some said she didn't know how. The auctioneer slammed his gavel down. "Sold, to the man on the black horse." The stranger dismounted, slow and deliberate. "Name's Cade Warren," he said, voice deep as the canyon. "I'll take the deed." Clara's eyes flickered, her jaw tightening. The new owner of McAllister Ranch looked at her only once, long enough to notice the thin scars on her hands and the quiet intelligence behind her lowered eyes. "Get the ranch keys from the office," the auctioneer told her, snickering. "Your new boss will need everything you got." She didn't move. Cade's gaze shifted toward her, unreadable. "That true?" he asked softly. "I bought you too." The auctioneer chuckled. "She came with the place." "Free labor." Cade's expression didn't change, but the silence that followed was sharp. "I don't buy people," he said. "Only land." He turned his back and walked toward the corral. But Clara, for the first time in years, lifted her head, just enough for him to see the faintest trace of something like disbelief. The first week was quiet. Cade worked the ranch like a man with ghosts on his back. He mended fences before sunrise, checked the horses by noon, and never spoke more than a few words at a time. Clara cooked, cleaned, and watched him from behind door frames, always silent, always wary. At night, he would hear her singing low, something haunting and strange, the melody carrying out through the dry wind. It wasn't English, it was something older. One evening, Cade caught her outside near the corral, standing barefoot in the dust, whispering to the sky. The light from the lantern cast her in golden shadow. "You speak Apache," he said quietly. She froze. "I've heard those words before. Down south of the border." Her eyes widened. You been among them." He nodded slowly. "Fought beside some, against others. Long time ago." She looked away, breathing quick. "Then you know I'm not one of you." "I know you're not a servant," he said simply. Something trembled in her chest. No one had ever said that to her, not since McAllister. By the end of the second week, Cade found himself studying her more than the horizon. The way she moved, quiet, graceful, always aware. The way her gaze lingered on the ridges far beyond the ranch as if she was listening to something no one else could hear. And then one morning, just after dawn, the riders came. Cade spotted them from the barn, 3 men on painted horses, moving in silence. Not soldiers, not settlers, Apache. They didn't ride fast, didn't aim rifles. They came like ghosts through the dust and stopped at the fence line. Clara walked out before Cade could stop. Her, the tallest warrior, dismounted, his eyes fixed on her. There was a scar running down his cheek and a necklace of carved bone around his neck. He said something in Apache, low, urgent. Clara froze, tears slipping down her cheeks. Cade moved closer, hand resting on his gun belt. The warrior pointed at her chest, his voice breaking. "Nadli she do shite easy," he said. "My sister." Cade's hand fell away from his revolver. Clara turned slowly toward him. "He's telling the truth," she whispered. "I was taken when I was a child, raised among them. I forgot who I was. Then white men came, they took me away again." The warrior stepped closer, his eyes soft now. "We searched," he said in broken English. "We thought you dead." Cade stood there, silent, as everything twisted inside him. The woman they'd call the servant had a family, a tribe, a name lost to the desert wind. "Go with him," Cade said after a moment. "You don't owe me a thing." Clara looked at him, really looked at him. You don't understand, she said. If I go, the town will follow. They'll think you're hiding Apaches here. They'll burn this place down. He exhaled slowly. Then we give them nothing to burn. By nightfall, the warriors had left, disappearing into the hills as silently as they'd come. But word spread faster than wildfire. By dawn, a mob gathered in town. They wanted blood. Cade saw them coming long before they reached the gates. Lanterns, rifles, angry faces twisted with fear and pride. The sheriff was with them, hat pulled low. "Warren," he shouted from his horse. "We heard you been talking with redskins. You harborin' any outlaws here?" Cade's voice was calm. "Ain't got anyone but me and the woman who works here." The sheriff spat. "That woman was raised by savages. You don't know what she is." Before Cade could answer, Clara stepped out of the barn, the wind lifting her hair. She looked at them without fear. "I know what I am," she said. "And I know what you are. You call yourselves men, but you'd burn a woman for where she was born." The crowd murmured. Cade's hand brushed the butt of his revolver. "This ranch is mine," he said coldly. "Anyone who wants to start a fire here better be ready to burn with it." The sheriff's jaw clenched. "Watch your mouth, Warren. You're outnumbered." Cade smiled, thin and dangerous. So were they at San Carlos. Didn't stop them. That was enough. The mob hesitated. They weren't used to men who spoke like that, men who didn't flinch. After a long, tense silence, the sheriff turned his horse. "We'll be watching you," he said. And they rode off, dust swirling behind them. Clara stood beside Cade, her face pale. "They'll come back," she said. "I know," he answered. "So will your brother." That night, the ranch was silent except for the creak of wood and the whisper of wind. Cade sat by the fire, polishing his rifle, while Clara watched the flames dance. "You could have let them take me," she said softly. "Would have made things easier." "I don't like easy," he muttered. She smiled faintly. "You remind me of someone." "Your brother." She shook her head. "No, my father." Before the world turned cruel. He looked up at her, the firelight flickering in his eyes. "You don't belong to any of them," he said. "Not the town, not the tribe. You belong where you choose." Her lips trembled. "And where do you belong?" He didn't answer, just looked into the fire, as if searching for something long lost in the embers. The next morning, Cade woke to the sound of hooves. A shadow moved across the hills. 5 riders this time, armed and fast. The mob had come back. Clara ran to him. "They'll kill you if they find me here." He handed her a rifle. "Then we make sure they don't." She stared at it, shaking her head. "I can't." "Yes, you can. You've fought before. I saw it in your eyes." The men thundered toward the gate, shouting, rifles raised. Cade and Clara took cover behind the trough. Bullets cracked through the morning air, splintering wood. And then, from the ridge, the war cry split the silence. Clara froze. The Apache warriors had returned. Her brother at the front, face painted, rifle in hand. They swept down the hill like a storm, flanking the mob before they reached the barn. It was over in minutes. Shots rang, horses screamed, and dust swallowed everything. When it cleared, the men from town were retreating, dragging their wounded back to safety. Clara's brother dismounted, looking at her. "You're safe now," he said. "Come home." She looked at Cade, then back at him. Home. The word felt heavy. Once, it had meant the sound of drums and laughter by the river. Then it had meant the quiet creak of a ranch house and a man who didn't treat her like property. She walked forward, her brother watching her closely. "I can't go," she said softly in Apache. "Not yet," he nodded, eyes full of sorrow and understanding. "Then we'll come again when the time is right." He mounted and rode off, his men vanishing into the hills once more. Cade watched them go, silent. When Clara turned to him, he only said one thing. "You should have gone." Her smile was sad but steady. "You saved me twice. Maybe it's my turn now." Weeks passed. The townsfolk never came again. The ranch stood quiet and whole, its fences mended, its horses strong. Sometimes, Cade caught Clara watching the sunset, whispering those same old songs to the wind. One evening, he came up behind her. "You still talk to your brother?" he asked. She nodded. "In dreams, the wind carries our words." He studied her for a long time. "I used to think this land was cursed," he said. "Too much blood, too many ghosts." "It's not cursed," she murmured. "It just needed someone to listen." Cade took off his hat, the first stars glimmering overhead. "You staying?" She looked at him, the hint of a smile in her eyes. "You'd get lost without me." He almost smiled. Maybe. The night deepened around them, and somewhere far away, a coyote howled. Clara's gaze lifted to the horizon, where the desert met the sky, and for the first time in years, she felt whole. Not a servant, not a prisoner, not a ghost of two worlds. Just a woman standing beside a man who'd never tried to own her, only understand her. And in the quiet of that desert night, Cade whispered what the wind already knew. "Whoever buys this ranch," he said softly, "gets no servant. Only a woman strong enough to tame the land, and maybe me." She laughed quietly, the sound like rain on dry earth. And somewhere in the distance, the echo of an Apache drum answered, steady, proud, eternal.